Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narachaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome for the Bhagavatam reading session. Thank you for joining in. So, yesterday we were at this shloka, we had halted at this shloka and we move on to the next. We completed 26 and we are on to 27. So just a little synopsis I would like to give that in the 5th chapter, where if you see, Narad Muni is asking 6 questions to Brahmaji about the universe, that Yad Rupam, what are the symptoms of the universe? What is the shelter? How is it created? How is it conserved? What does this universe depend upon? And what is it composed of? Means what is this universe? What are the ingredients of this universe? So most of the questions here answered in the same chapter, but the last question that he asked, what is this universe composed of, or the you can say the ingredients that are there, he has answered them in actually chapter 6, where that what is the universe composed of. So the Lord is both the material and effective cause of this universe. So how the limbs of the Lord generate various ingredients of this universe is actually summarized in this chapter. And in the very first shloka of this particular chapter, the 6th chapter, where Brahmaji starts answering the question. So Brahmaji is actually giving Shabda Praman. Of what is he giving Shabda Praman? He is giving that Lord is both the material and effective cause of this universe. So he is giving Shabda Praman, but from you can say that from the 23rd shloka, he starts giving actually Pratyaksh Praman. He starts giving that, okay, I was also one of them, and I am also one such person, and I have experienced it. So he is giving his own personal experience also about this. So he speaks about Ekpad Vibhuti and Tripad Vibhuti. So this Ekpad Vibhuti is actually the material world, and Tripad Vibhuti is the spiritual world, which means what? The 3/4 of this whole cosmic manifestation is actually the spiritual world, and 1/4 is only the material world. 3/4 is the spiritual world. And the spiritual world has the Sandhini, Samvit, and sorry, the Samvit, Sandhini, and Halladini Shakti. It has. And from the 23rd shloka only, he starts giving this Pratyaksh Praman. Sorry, I did say 26 or 23rd. So from 23rd, he starts telling his own experience. So that's how we are continuing with this, that In the 27th shloka now he says that all these ingredients are arranged by the Lord's limbs only. And through them only, Brahmaji is performing sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord. Because who is the enjoyer of sacrifice? Kṛṣṇa is the enjoyer of sacrifice. Because he says in the Bhagavad-gītā, Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarva loko maheshwaram surida sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. So in this 27th shloka, he'll be saying this. So we'll just read. Gatayo matayaschaiva prayaschittam samarpanam purusha va yavir ete sama sambharaha samvrita mayaha. Sushil Prabhu, please do the honors of reading the translation and purport.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Translation. Thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily parts of the personality of Godhead. By invocation of the demigod's names, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete. Purport. In this verse, special stress is given to the person of Supreme Hare Krishna Lord, and not to his impersonal Brahmajyoti as being the source of all supplies. Narayana, the Supreme Lord, is the goal of sacrificial results, and therefore Vedic hymns are ultimately meant for attaching this goal. Human life is thus made successful by pleasing Narayana and getting entrance into the direct association of Narayana in the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So further he says, iti samvrita sambharaha purushvaya vairaham tameva purusham yagna tene vayajamishwaram. Lakshminarayan Prabhu, are you there? So, okay, Lakshminarayan Prabhu is on hearing mode. Okay, okay. Anup Prabhu, please do the honors of reading the translation and purport both.
Thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice. And I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. Purport. People in general are always anxious to have peace of mind or peace in the world, but they do not know how to achieve such a standard of peace in the world. Such peace in the world is obtainable by performances of sacrifice and by practice of austerity. In the Bhagavad-gītā 5.29, the following prescription is recommended. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram surhidam sarva bhutanam nyatva mam shantim rjhati. The karma yogis know that the Supreme Lord is the factual enjoyer and maintainer of all sacrifices and of the austere life. They also know that the Lord is the ultimate proprietor of all the planets and is the factual friend of all living entities. Such knowledge gradually converts the karma yogis into pure devotees of the Lord through the association of unalloyed devotees, and thus they are able to be liberated from material bondage. Brahma, the original living being within the material world, taught us the way of sacrifice. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interest for satisfaction of a second person. That is the way of all activities. Every man is engaged in sacrificing his interest for others, either in the form of family, society, community, country, or the entire human society. But perfection of such sacrifices is attained when they are performed for the sake of the Supreme Person, the Lord. Because the Lord is the proprietor of everything. Because the Lord is the friend of all living creatures. and because he is the maintainer of the performer of sacrifice, as well as the supplier of the ingredients of sacrifices. It is he only and no one else who should be satisfied by all sacrifices. The whole world is engaged in sacrificing energy for advancement of learning, social upliftment, economic development, and plans for total improvement of the human condition. But no one is interested in sacrificing for the sake of the Lord, as it is advised in the Bhagavad-gītā. Therefore, there is no peace in the world. If men at all want peace in the world, they must practice sacrifice in the interest of the Supreme Proprietor and Friend of all.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So, if you see that if the Shabda Praman is supported by, our Pratyaksha, so it reinforces our faith very much. Like many times, if you see, there are great devotees, they give their own, also experience or their own, realizations also. So that reinforces our faith very much. Ultimately, Shabda has to convert into Pratyaksha. Whatever one reads, what is the proof that one is progressing? The Shabda. Shabda has to progressively transfer into Pratyaksha and when that transformation happens means one is actually progressing. Like every day we are reading Bhagavad-gītā, every day we are reading Bhagavatam, right? And definitely we are seeing that there is some transformation. What is that transformation? That now we have very less taste for material things or material hankerings or material sense gratification and more interest in, the Supreme Lord. So Brahma is trying to reinforce Narad Muni's faith by sharing his own experience, not just who has understood from the scriptures. So he wants to say that, yes, even I have also experienced this, and that's what he's giving his own experience. So let's see the next. Tataste Bhratar ime prajana patayo nava ayajana vyakta mavyaktam purusham susamhahita. Priyanka, please read the translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Translation. My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Purport. The manifested personalities are the demigods, like the ruler of the heavenly kingdom Indra and his associates, and the non-manifested personality is the Lord himself. The manifested personalities are mundane controllers of the material affairs, whereas the non-manifested personality of Godhead is transcendental beyond the range of the material atmosphere. In this age of Kali, the manifested demigods are also not to be seen, for space travel has completely stopped. So both the powerful demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are non-manifested to the covered eyes of the modern man. Modern men want to see everything with their eyes, although they are not sufficiently qualified. Consequently, they disbelieve in the existence of the demigods or of the Supreme God. They should see through the pages of authentic scriptures and should not simply believe their unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes tinged with the ointment of love of God.
Yeah, and I was just recently saying, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundar Machinta Guna Surupam Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Eyes tinged with the ointment of love. Premanjana Charita. Let's see the next. So, Tatascha Manava Kale Ijire Rishayo Apare Pitaro Vibudha Daitya Manushya Krutobhi Vibhumaha. Saying further. So today we have a new entry into a class, and her name is Monica Mataji. Monica Mataji, we welcome you. Oh, where did she go? Yeah, she's there. Monica Mataji, please unmute yourself and read the translation and purport both.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. The Daityas are devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. The devotees of the Lord are Ekanishtha or absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, they have practically no time to seek the benefits of material facilities. Because of their realization of their spiritual identity, they are more concerned with spiritual emancipation than with material comforts. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is a nice shloka, the 31st. Narayane Bhagavati tadidam vishwamahitam gruhitam mayoga ruganaha sarga dava gunasvataha. Vignesh Prabhu, please read the purport and translation both.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Translation. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Purport. The question put by Narada before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Material actions and reactions, as the material scientist can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. The material energy is a potency of the Lord, which is displayed in time, accepting the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. A rich man constructs a big house by spending his energy in the shape of resources, and similarly, he destroys a big house by his resources, but the maintenance is always under his personal care. The Lord is the richest of the rich because he is always full, complete in six opulences. Therefore, he is not required to do anything personally. But everything in the material world is carried out by his wishes and direction. Therefore, the entire material manifestation is situated in Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is due to lack of knowledge only, and this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs. Brahmaji is the highest authority in Vedic wisdom, and his assertions in this connection is therefore the supreme information.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So, this universe is situated in Narayan, the Supreme Lord. And by nature, the Lord is actually beyond the gunas of Prakriti. But for creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe, then he has many gunas. By, he's accepting Maya through these forms of the Devatas. And uh, this universe is situated in Narayan. Though the Lord is beyond Prakriti, he accepts, So for many times, where there is a rich man who is constructing his house, but he's spending so much of his energy. There is in the form of so many resources, and in the form of so much of his time invested in also. And he destroys also his big house by his resources. For example, he's built a big bungalow, but now he wants to have a big mansion. So what will happen? He will destroy that big house with a bulldozer. And that big man will maintain also. right? With his personal care, some renovation is required, some changes are required. That is, so even the Lord also works parallelly like that only in this way. So let's see the next. Srijami tanniyukto aham haro harati tattvashah vishwa purusha rupena paripati trishakti drukah. Vishal Prabhu, please read translation and purport both.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
By his will I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies. Purport. The conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. The one is Lord Vasudeva, and only by his different energies and expansions are different manifestations, both in the material and in the spiritual worlds, maintained. In the material world also, Lord Vasudeva is everything, as stated in the Bhagavad-gītā 7.19. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Everything is Vasudeva only. In the Vedic hymns also, the same Vasudeva is held to be supreme. It is said in the Vedas, Vasudevat Paro Brahman na Chanyo Artho Asti Tattvataha. In fact, there is no greater truth than Vasudeva. And Lord Krishna affirms the same truth in the Bhagavad-gītā 7.7. Mata Parataram Nanyat. There is nothing above me, Lord Krishna. So the conception of oneness, as overly stressed by the impersonalist, is also accepted by the personalist devotee of the Lord. The difference is that the impersonalist denies personality in the ultimate issue, whereas the devotee gives more importance to the personality of Godhead. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam explains this truth in the verse under discussion. Lord Vasudeva is one without a second, but because he is all powerful, he can expand himself as well as display his omnipotencies. The Lord is described here as omnipotent by three energies, three Shaktidrik. So primarily his Mataji, please scroll down.
Yeah. Just yeah.
So primarily his three energies are internal, marginal, and external. This external energy is also displayed in the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Similarly, the internal potency is also displayed in three spiritual modes, Samvid, Sandhini, and Hladini. The marginal potency of the living entities is also spiritual, Prakritim, Vidhi, Me, Param. But the living entities are never equal to the Lord. The Lord is Nirast Samya Asti Atishaya. In other words, no one is greater than or equal to the Supreme Lord. So the living entities, including even such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are all subordinate to the Lord. In the material world also, in his eternal form of Vishnu, he maintains and controls all the affairs of the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. So if you see in these two shlokas, 31 and 32, and we'll be seeing the 33 also, he's answering to question number 2 over here, that what is the shelter of this universe, and question number 5 also, that yat param, what is this dependence on, what is the universe dependent on. So what is the shelter, what is the adhar shakti of this universe, yat adhishthanam, and what is yat param, what is it depending on. So in the 31st shloka he said that the shelter of the universe, everything is who is the shelter? Lord Narayan is only the shelter, because he is beyond the gunas. And then in this 32nd shloka he is saying that what is this whole universe dependent on. So the whole universe is only by his empowerment Brahmaji is able to create, or Shiva is able to destroy. And Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu is able to maintain all these things. So Lord Brahma is only creating under his order. Lord Shiva is only destroying under his order. And the Supreme Lord is holding those three energies, that are the Samvit, Sandhini and Haladini Shakti. And he is only protecting this universe. So this particular verse, the 32nd verse, is elaborating the creation, maintenance, and destruction. This is mentioned in the shloka number 31. And it is also answering to this question, Yat Parastam, Lord, on whom does Brahma depend on? So Brahma and Shiva, they both are different from Vishnu because of their contact with Rajogun and Tamogun, since they are under the control of Vishnu. So though Vishnu is connected with Sattva Guna, but he is still Shuddha Sattva also. He is not actually in contact with Sattva Guna, since he is indifferent to it, and since Sattva does not have a harmful nature. So because he's beyond the three modes of material nature. So he's shown to be as Lord, he's shown to be as Paramatma, who holds the Maya Shakti, having the three gunas. Or this can also mean that he holds the internal, external, and the Tatashta Shakti, Sandhini, Samvit, and Haladini Shakti. It can mean this also. So let's see the next. So, iti te abhiti tata yathe damanu pruchhasi nanyat bhagavata kinchit bhavyam sad asad atmakam. Vaishnavi, please read the translation and purport both. Vaishnavi, there or you not there? Vaishnavi Gosavi? Okay, Shweta Temme Mataji, please read translation and purport both. Hare Krishna. Okay, Anuprabhu, please read the translation and purport both.
My dear son, whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The complete cosmic situation, both in the material and in the spiritual manifestations of the energies of the Lord, is working and moving first as the cause and then as the effect. But the original cause, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Effects of the original cause become the causes of other effects, and thus everything, either permanent or temporary, is working as cause and effect. And because the Lord is the primordial cause of all persons and all energies, he is called the cause of all causes, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita as well as in the Bhagavad-gītā. The Brahma Samhita 5.1 affirms, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigra Anadi Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. And the Bhagavad-gītā 10.8 is said, Sarvasya Prabhava Mata Sarvam Pavartate Iti Mata Bhajanti Mam. Buddha Bhava Samanvita. So the original primeval cause is Vigraha, the personal, and the impersonal spiritual effulgence, Brahma Jyoti, is also an effect of the Supreme Brahman. Brahmana hi Pratishta Taham, Lord Krishna.
Yeah, so what Brahmaji is saying to Narada, he's saying that, see, I have answered your questions. But see, you should not think that there is anything either as a effect or as a cause other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, actually this section has been summarized over here. So this section means what? 31st, 32nd, and 33rd shloka. So he's saying that this particular sad asad atakam, this actually means that this whole universe is composed of cause and effect, and also the spiritual world and the material world. So Narad, you should not think that there is anything except the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is all in all. So that's what he's concluding with this particular section. Let's see. Na bharati me anga mrusho palakshate na vai kvachin me manaso mrushagati na me rishi kani patantya satpathe yame hridau kanta sorry yan me hridau takantha yavata dhruto hari. Yes, Sushil Prabhu, please read translation and purport both.
Right. Translation. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Person of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Purport. Lord Brahma is the original speaker of Vedic wisdom to Narada, and Narada is the distributor of transcendental knowledge all over the world through his various disciples like Vyasadeva and others. The followers of Vedic wisdom accept the statements of Brahmaji as gospel truth, and transcendental knowledge is thus being distributed all over the world by a process of deceptive succession from time immemorial, since the beginning of the creation. Lord Brahma is the perfect liberated living being within the material world, and any sincere student of transcendental knowledge must accept the words and statements of Brahmaji as infallible. The Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down directly from the Supreme Lord unto the heart of Brahma, and since he is the most perfect living being, Brahmaji is always correct to the letter. And this is because Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord as the supreme truth. In the Brahma Samhita, which is compiled by Brahmaji, he repeats this aphorism, Govindam Adibhusham Tam Aham Bhajami. I am a worshipper of the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, the primeval Lord. So normally in his mood are to be accepted as truth because of his direct and very intimate connection with Govinda, the primeval Lord. Sri Govinda, who pleasingly accepts the loving transcendental service of his devotees, gives all protection to the words and actions of his devotees. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad-gītā 9.31, Kontya pratijanihi, O son of Kunti, please declare it. The Lord asks Arjuna to declare, and why? Because sometimes the declaration of Govinda himself may seem contradictory to mundane creatures, but the mundaners will never find any contradiction in the words of the Lord's devotees. The devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they may remain infallible. Therefore, the process of devotional service always begins in the service of the devotee who appears in disciplic succession. The devotees are always liberated, but that does not mean that they are impersonal. The Lord is a person eternally, and the devotee of the Lord is also a person eternally. Because the devotee has his sense organs, even at the liberated stage, he is therefore person always. And because the devotee's service is accepted by the Lord in full reciprocation, the Lord is also a person in his complete spiritual embodiment. The devotee's senses being engaged in the service of the Lord never go astray under the attraction of false material enjoyment. The plans of the devotees never go in vain, and all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. This is standard of perfection and liberation. Anyone beginning from Brahmaji down to the human being is at once put on the path of liberation simply by his attachment in great earnestness for the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, the Primable Lord. The Lord affirms this in Bhagavad-gītā. Can I skip the sloka, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu, yeah.
Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead in the relationship of transcendental loving service will always be infallible in words and action. The reason is that the Supreme Lord is absolute truth, and anything earnestly dovetailed with the absolute truth attains the same transcendental quality. On the other hand, any amount of mental speculation on the strength of material science and knowledge without any bona fide touch with the absolute truth is sure to be mundane, untruth, and failure, simply due to not being in touch with the absolute truth. Such godless, unfaithful words and actions, however materially enriched, are never to be trusted. That is the purport of these important words. A grain of devotion is more valuable than the tons of faithlessness. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very nice purport Prabhupada is writing actually. So now Narad Muni might say or may say that, okay, Brahmaji, thank you very much. You have spoken very nicely. But whatever you have spoken may just be your own opinion. He's given Shabda Praman also, he's given Pratyaksh Praman also. So all these Mayavad, Shunyavad, they have always been existing. And Mayavad was not started by Shankaracharya. He propagated it because all these teachings have been existing from time immemorial. Even the alvars that are there, they write that, they've tried Jainism, Buddhism, and then later on, I took to Vaishnavism. So Narad Muni may say that why should I accept your statements bona fide or authentic? Why should Brahmaji's statements be accepted as truth? So Brahmaji is going to submit his own, you can say, curriculum vitae or CV here. That what is my qualification? Why should you believe me? And why should you believe my words? And that is why he's saying that, see, because I have caught the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord in my heart with great zeal. So that is why the first thing that is there, my words are never false. The second is that the working of my mind is never false. And the third is that my senses are never distracted. So the senses, they do not fall onto any wrong path, as you can say. So बड़ी उत्कंठता से मैं भगवान को अपने हृदय में धारण करता हूँ. With great eagerness, I hold the Supreme Lord in my heart. So this is actually, Brahmaji's qualification. Anybody who's holding the Supreme Lord in his heart, then that particular person's words will never go or fail, or they are never false. Secondly, his mind is also a very controlled mind, or his mind does not cheat him. And his senses are always engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. And this is what is been said in this particular verse. So let's see the next. So he's come, in these shlokas, from 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, he's saying that it is not possible to completely know the Lord. And that is why the Lord is inconceivable to our material senses. Soham samanyayam mayam stapopmayam prajapati nama bhiva abhivandita patihi asthaya yoga nipuna samahitah Stanadhya gacchayata atma sambhavaha. So, in this 35th shloka, Vignesh, please read the translation and purport both.
Translation. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities, and am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. Purport. Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord, despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom, despite his austerity, penance, mystic powers, and self realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entities. So, these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart, Ridhava Kantyavata, which is the devotional service mood. Therefore, the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service, and not by any amount of material qualifications as scientist or speculative philosopher, or by attainment of mystic powers. This fact is clearly corroborated in the Bhagavad-gītā 18.54 to 55. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim lavate param. Bhaktya mam avijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. Only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualifications of Vedic wisdom, austerity, etc., can help one on the path of devotional service. But failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect because even in that position of self realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. By self realization, one is qualified to become a devotee, and the devotee, by service mood, bhaktya, only can gradually know the personality of Godhead. One should not, however, misunderstand the import of Vishate enters into as referring to merging into the existence of the Supreme. Even in material existence, one is merged in the existence of the Lord. No materialist can disentangle self from matter, for the self is merged into in the external energy of the Lord. As no layman can separate butter from milk, no one can extricate the merged self from matter by acquiring some material qualification. This Vishate by devotion, Bhaktya, means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. Bhakti or devotional service to the Lord means to become free from material entanglement and then to enter into the kingdom of God, becoming one like Him. Losing one's individuality is not the aim of Bhakti Yoga or of the devotees of the Lord. There are 5 types of liberation, one of which is called Sayujya Mukti, or being merged into the existence or body of the Lord. The other forms of liberation maintain the individuality of the supreme particle soul and involve being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The word Vishate used in the verses of the Bhagavad-gītā is thus meant for the devotees who are not at all anxious for any kind of liberation. The devotees are satisfied simply in being engaged in the service of the Lord, regardless of the situation. Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. Therefore, who can be a more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits that in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantists therefore cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta or Vedanta plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization, and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead to some extent. No one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, by self-surrender and a devotional attitude and by nothing else. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said Vedeshu Durlabham. Or simply by study of Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham Atma Bhakto, very easily available to his devotee. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, was not satisfied simply with compiling the Vedanta Sutras. But over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master Narada, he compiled the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in order to understand the real import of Vedanta. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, therefore, is the absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So, he's saying that in this shloka, Lord Brahma is saying actually that he cannot understand the Lord, although he is in disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, he is filled with austerities, he is worshipped by the Prajapatis, and he is expert in mystic powers and self-realization. Such people cannot also understand. So, because his nature and being filled with the Vedas, filled with austerity, and all he's worshipping, he's being worshipped by even the Prajapatis. They can also, though he's such a powerful person, they can also not know. Such people can also not know the Lord. So, how then can others created by Brahmaji understand the Supreme Lord? So, even in the previous verse, if you see that he's saying that my words that are there, but they're never false, because the reason is that the Lord, is the cause of everything. He's holding the Lord in his heart or in his mind, okay? And where there is Lord, there is always truth. The falsity cannot prevail over there, and people will believe your words. And those who are, others who are learned in scriptures, they do not hold the Lord in their mind. And because the other, like, these Mayavadis and, Brahmavadis and all these, because they do not hold the Lord in their mind, the working of their mind is only false. So when somebody is holding the Lord in his mind, his working is based on truth. And if he's not holding the Supreme Lord in his mind, then his mind is false. And if the mind is false, definitely the words also will be false, for sure. So that is why we should not accept the opinions of such people who are liars, you can say. So, in this particular shloka, what is he saying is that, see, I am very much, I have, the Lord has infused me with, the knowledge of Vedas, and I'm filled with austerity. And even all these masters, the Prajapatis are also worshipping me, right? And, but still we all do not know the Lord, because though the Lord has created Brahma can also not understand the Supreme Lord. So the Acharyas say that those who are learned in the conclusions of all the Vedas think that they know the form of the Supreme Lord, but they do not understand the other things by some reasoning as such. So he's saying that I'm holding the Supreme Lord in my heart, or in my zealous heart, you can say. And that is why Brahmaji is filled with the Vedas. And the Vedas have come out from, the Vedas have come from whom? The Supreme Lord. And that is why, if somebody is asking what is the meaning of the Vedas even today, so he's saying that I'm the first person who has done austerity. And when Brahma was contemplating how to carry out this creation of this universe, then he heard close by in the water a word that is 2 syllables he heard, tapa. And this tapa was composed of the 16th and I think it is 21st or 22nd sounds of the alphabet. So, which is known as, the wealth of the devotees with no material, desire at all. So, Brahmaji is performing austerity first because he is ordered by the Supreme Lord. And then when he is gaining knowledge of the Lord, then he received even powers from the Lord. And that is why he is worshipped by the Prajapati. So, he's saying that please do not say that I do not have any powers of yoga. Like, with this concentrated mind, I am practicing skillful yoga. Yoga means link with the Supreme actually. But I did not know the Lord because he did not know that he is the creator. And he did not even know that the Supreme Lord is my creator. So then how can those people who are created by me can know the Supreme Lord? So those who say that, the existence of the Lord is, secondary, actually they are blind. They cannot see only the Lord, Supreme Lord behind the creation of all this cosmic manifestation. This is what actually they're trying to say in this particular shloka. So, natosmi aham tat charanam samiyusham bhavatchidam swasti ayanam sumangalam yo atma maya vibham sma paryagad yatha nabha sutan swatantam thapare kutah. So, in this particular 36 number shloka, he says that even the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits. Krishna also does not know, his own, extension or his own limits. Then who am I, to understand the Supreme Lord? So, somebody read this. Not read. Oh, this is a long purport actually, but fine, not a problem. Prabhu, please read this long purport, 36 number.
Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Purport: Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us as the supreme spiritual master of all living beings that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of material life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the father's father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties, so the father is naturally a good advisor. But Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He is the father of Manu, who is the father of mankind. All of the universal planets, therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. His potencies are immeasurable, as confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Shakti Vivid Deva Shriya Yati Swabhaki Pavaki Yana Balakriya Cha Svedas Vataras Upanishad 6.8. He is the greatest of all and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, namely Brahmaji.
admits
that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons who, with a very poor fund of knowledge, claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. The so-called material scientists say that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest point of the universe being carried by a Sputnik. This is also utopian because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned, from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut as has become fashionable for modern bewildered scientific men. One scientific man who had no belief in God was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, which is obtained after many, many changes of body in 8.4 million species of life, simply for the concrete material happiness of life through increasing artificial needs in the name of advancement of economic developments and scientific knowledge. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of the Lord Kṛṣṇa directly in the Bhagavad-gītā, and that is the instruction of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings. Anyone denying the surrendering process is as recommended both in the Bhagavad-gītā and in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and for that matter in all authorized scriptures will be forced to surrender unto the laws of the material nature. The living entity by its constitutional position is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto material nature. Material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, Bhagavad-gītā 7.14, and as Membhinda Prakriti Astada, or my separated energy in 80 divisions, Bhagavad-gītā 7.4. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in Bhagavad-gītā 9.10, Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Saracha Charam. Under my direction only is material nature working, and thus are all things moving. And the living entities being superior energy to matter have choice and discrimination either to surrender unto the Lord or to surrender unto material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated, but by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because surrendering process itself is bhava chitam, liberation from all material miseries, swasti ayanam, perception of all happiness, and sumangalam, the source of everything auspicious. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation, happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky. Although such liberation, happiness are infinitely greater than the sky, in our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but the happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. That spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. It is said in the scriptures, Brahma Sukyam Tva Anantam, spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but the happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again. And then again, the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more, and as such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is Anandam Bodhi Vardhanam, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Thank you, Mashi.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. That was really quick. So very nice, this particular purport is that it is when you surrender to the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji is saying that it is best for me, to surrender to the Supreme Lord. And when you surrender to the Supreme Lord, what is happening? Bhavachidam, it is destroying this material existence. And then it is all auspicious also. And it is sumangalam also. It will allow one to perceive all happiness also. So the best course is to surrender to the Supreme Lord. So we'll see the next on Monday, 37 and 38. And then Brahmaji will describe the original creator, Mahavishnu of the universe. And that's where he will answer the fourth question, that how does the dissolution of this universe takes place. So we'll be seeing in the next class as such. So dear devotees, thank you so much for this wonderful association given by you all, so that even I can form this habit of reading. So thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.